Hey everyone, it's me HawkeyeG, and I'm here with some campaign tips for the Ironbrow's Expedition faction of the Dwarfs race in Total War Warhammer 3's Immortal Empires campaign. This means I'll be covering what I think are the most important things I learned while playing through my own campaign on Legendary difficulty. I'll be talking about topics such as campaign map strategy, diplomacy, and battle-focused recommendations. This is definitely one of the tougher campaigns. I thought Ungrim Iron Fist's campaign would be the hardest, but I would say that this has been the toughest one for me to figure out. This one just has a couple of little nuances that I'd like to think I've at least made some progress on figuring out, and I feel a lot more comfortable in this campaign, so I'm hoping these tips will help you feel the same in your campaigns as well. So that being said, let's get into the video. The first thing to think about with this campaign is what type of campaign you'd like to play. By that I mean, are you playing Thorek in pursuit of another campaign victory outcome, or are you playing this campaign in pursuit of a new and different experience for the dwarves? With the suitable jungle climate, we could spend a lot of time in this area fighting people, and frankly that can mean both good guys and bad. But there is an absolute lack of artifacts in the area that you start in. It's hard to see when we're so zoomed out, but if we just casually scroll north through the mountains, we can see a lot of artifact spots here to the north. If we scroll south to the jungle, we can see none, and we'd have to go pretty far to the east or to the northwest. The point being, we need those artifacts in order to complete a victory. Short victory is reforge at least 5 artifacts via the forge. To reforge a single artifact, we need 2 treasures, and they have to be a correct matching pair. If you ever want to complete this campaign, you have to go north. You just have to go north. You have no other option. However, that doesn't mean you can't play this campaign for fun. You can take over the jungles, you can fight through here, you can take some of the desert. There's I think, a couple different ways to approach it. A lot of it boils down to whether you're going to fight Krok Gar or not and take the jungle. But just something to keep in mind, you want to decide that early on. Am I playing this because I want to explore the jungle, or am I just playing this because it's a fun faction, an interesting campaign, and I'd like to get to the victory? So that you need to make that decision. I am going to treat the rest of these tips, however, as if you are pursuing victory with the faction, so just bear that in mind as well. The first tip specific to this campaign is to get an early non-aggression pact with Krok Gar. It's very easy to do this by joining war with the Skaven and getting him to agree to it. Very easy to do this. Now, this might hurt a little bit once you push far enough ahead. There are some vampire counts and Tomb Kings up here. The Skaven might come through from here to attack you, but besides that, you really shouldn't expect it to have any detrimental effects. The Skaven most likely are not going to attack you. If they do, maybe you have one fight with them. This means it's a very easy way to get Krok Gar on your side at the start, because if you don't do this, he will snowball and he will inevitably end up fighting you later on. As a side note, if you do have to fight him or something else goes wrong, just keep in mind that Iron Drakes, Thunderers, and Grudge Throwers will definitely be your friends against the Lizardmen. For my next tip, like I do with most campaigns, I'm going to make a recommendation on whether you should play slow and patient or fast and expansive. You can probably guess, with this one, I'm going to recommend you play fast this time. The reason is that you want to try to capture the province Crater of the Walking Dead, or at least ensure that you take Lamia and Libaris before Krok Gar does. For the first 20 turns or so, it looks like this will be easy, and you have all the time in the world, because Krok Gar doesn't seem to move very fast. I mean, we can see here, he still hasn't even completed the Kingdom of Beasts province. The thing is, once Krok Gar finally does build up and gain some momentum, soon as he breaks out of his starting settlement, he just steamrolls and plows right through all of these settlements one after another. He moves very fast. After he does, he will typically immediately declare war on the Tomb Kings, the Vampire Counts, and he will sweep through the rest of this territory as well. So that means you need to pull no punches and do your best to push north, fight through the Greenskins, take on the Vampire Counts the moment you can, as soon as you're recovered from the Greenskins, and then fight the Tomb Kings in short order. It's okay if Krok Gar ends up with one settlement or something, but you really want to make sure you take Lamia and Libaris, especially for the gemstones. Like, you have a diamond resource in here that we can make a lot of money off of. You have spice, which would be a unique trade resource, and you'd be able to get some items out of the forge. Nothing super useful, but still having the option. And overall, this is just going to be beneficial for you to have, make more income, and give you a better inroad to pushing north to fighting the Skaven. And if you don't move fast enough, you won't get the opportunity to take any of this. Krok Gar will become much stronger than you if he's not already, and there's kind of no recovery from that. In fact, If we take a look at a different campaign that I've done, where I asked Krok Gar to declare war on the Skaven with the intent of seeing him lose Lamia, or at least struggle to move through the mountains and lose momentum, you can see that's very much not what happened. And as a possible alternative, you could just ally with Krok Gar, let him take a bunch of territory, take one settlement here, sell it to him in exchange for a military or defensive alliance. You do need the military alliance to gain control of the artifact. And once you have that, then you just let him do most of the work for you and push north. Maybe you decide to fight the Tomb Kings and take their territories so you can become friends with whoever they're fighting. Maybe you push west and you wipe out Skarbrand. You move north to try to take out the Greenskins. Personally, I think that this kind of becomes too hectic, and the main thing I don't like is that Krok Gar's strength will greatly exceed your own. Part of the reason that it looks so bad is because I just took a horrible auto-resolve on this army fighting this settlement in order to just get this footage really quick because I've abandoned this campaign. But as you can see, Krok Gar can fight through the mountains, so if you don't want your campaign to look like this, you have to move fast in the early game. The next tip I have is probably pretty obvious for you if you've played a campaign or two in this region before. I might not need to tell you this, but if you haven't, I think that taking out Skarbrand early on is something you should look at as a pretty universal benefit. This is especially true for Thorek's campaign, as you're going to be neighbors with him early on. His capital is right next to the capital of a smaller province that would give him direct access to the core of your territory. So being near him and being the human player, he's likely to target you. It's very common for Skarbrand to bring an army with high-quality units. He has lots of cavalry, chariot, and fast-moving infantry options. These are all bad things for the dwarfs. Not to mention, the amount of fighting he'll usually be doing usually inflates his level significantly. Even in the end of this campaign that I previewed, where I'm much further along, I have a higher level character, I've done lots more fighting than normal, Skarbrand still outlevels me, and to be honest, I feel like that's pretty atypical for the AI to have a higher level lore than the player. Now, he might incidentally help you against the Skaven or the Greenskins to the north, so you might think, well, maybe if we just push him in the right direction, but I don't think that is worth the risk of him pushing through your defenses. He really only has to win the one fight, and it's going to take you a while to get enough resources online just to hold both of these points. Well, to be able to hold this western point against him successfully, you'll usually need elite troops of your own to fight him, so you can't necessarily rely on an increased garrison and a basic army to prevent him from getting through. What you really want to do is muster troops and push out to destroy him if you get the chance, or at least cripple him if he's already losing a fight against somebody else. In this campaign, he actually did pretty well, and the forces of order, or at least forces of neutrality that were in the region, did not perform well. So he was able to thrive. That's not what you want to see. I don't know if you want to run through the whole province, but if you can destroy him in a settlement or two, you should do it, regardless of the risk you should take. If you're not going to send your main army there, send a secondary army there and be willing to lose it all. Eliminating him from the game significantly decreases the risk and the threat that you will face on the northwestern side. It decreases some of the chaos in the campaign. It might make it easier for the Greenskins or the Skaven to expand, but they're going to be fighting you anyway, so it's not really going to help you. I think he's a more dangerous opponent, and he's too close to you, and it's harder to get the right tools to defend against constant attacks from him. The next tip I have is about the units you'll be bringing. Just like any Dwarfs campaign, you'll want to convert into the Siege Workshop building fairly early on so that you can get Grudge Throwers and Iron Drakes. However, this is especially true for Thorek, and I think that you can enjoy Quarrelers for a little bit longer as well. As soon as we get another settlement to tier 3, we'll want to swap this barracks into that and put the Siege Workshop in here so we can get some different troops for Thorek. The main thing here is that he has this Proven Tools skill available to him. This will automatically give you the homing missile banner for all of your Grudge Thrower units, and it'll give you a 50% increase for armor-piercing missile damage on Quarrelers. Those are the two important ones we're looking at. Now, Quarrelers themselves don't have immense armor piercing. That 50% really only means an increase of about 3 AP damage. But overall, that's still good. It helps keep them relevant longer into the game, and that means that you can save a little bit of money on these units. You should still get Thunderers, and later in the campaign, you basically only want Thunderers. I don't think Quarrelers are going to be your best bet forever. but it does mean that it's a good option for the early game to help boost your power and momentum. Same thing with the Grudge throwers. Having them all get homing attacks without having to equip a banner onto them, without having to fill your ancillary slots with those banners, means that you'll be able to get a lot of value out of them without quite as much effort or expenditure. That being said, I'm pretty sure that other banners that you put on them do override that ability. So just keep that in mind. If you, in my experience at least, putting one of these other, explosive damage or armor piercing damage increase, that does seem to nullify the homing effect and takes away the anti-large bonus that his skill gives. So I don't think you can stack the two of those together. Just keep in mind that this skill is pretty powerful. You can get it relatively early on. You can see I'm basically at the perfect point to get it here at 13. I'd unlock this at 12 and I'd have this at 13. Might not be an optimal skill tree, but we're not going to worry about that for now. Just know that you can get that as an option, and it will pretty significantly boost your output without really coming at any sort of cost. Another tip I have is to spend your Oathgold. This is a pretty fundamental tip for any dwarf campaign, but it's more important and effective for Thorek's campaign. As you can see here, he gets increased Oathgold from buildings, not as important as the cost reduction for crafting runes. Specifically, what they're talking about are the character and banner runes. All of these are going to be half price. It makes them a lot more accessible. So, because we're going to run through this real quick so I can talk you into it. The main thing to remember is you pay half price on banner and character runes. This means you can stock up on these, especially the character runes, much earlier, much more easily. You can also grab the more expensive banner runes that are further down, like the Master Rune of Stromny Redbeard. Some of these better ones that have more beneficial effects because they still aren't that expensive relative to your other options. And with Thorek's unique skills, you don't need to bother purchasing these artillery ones, at least not until you're building a second army. Now, even though the equipment crafting isn't any cheaper, you'll still have more Oathgold overall just from saving money on what you spend on the character and banner runes, which means you can get access to these items earlier on. This will help a lot in the early game, seeing as you effectively have two runesmith type characters who aren't really combat specialists, but they will see significant improvements in their melee capabilities if you stack, some 20 melee defense, 10 melee attack, and 10 ward save on them. So what am I talking about here? Well, in character runes, we can get 7 melee attack. We should get this passive rune for Frenzy for a 10 melee attack plus 3 bonus. We can get 4% ward save on the Rune of Luck. We can get another 6 melee defense from the Veteran's Hammer. We can get 7 more from the Ranger's Cloak plus some missile resistance. You could go with the Slayer's Ring for 5% ward save or a little more melee attack and defense here. And we can get 6 physical resistance from the Slayer's Belt. And that's to say nothing of if we decide to take one of these high level banner runes and put that on your character as well. So you can see it very quickly adds up. You can very easily beef up your lord and your characters to have a lot of resistances and some really crazy stats. Even for a runesmith, you can get some really solid resistances at the baseline and get some good stat lines on them as well. And I really should have done the Frenzy rune, and I am embarrassed to not. Why do I have this stupid flaming rune? It's because of the vampire counts. Hopefully you can forgive me for that one. That's an obvious mistake. The point being, spending your Oathgold, really critical element of this campaign. Now, one last piece I want to touch on here is with the artifacts. One quick thing to keep in mind is, if someone else has control of a territory that has an artifact, you can obtain it by forming a military alliance with that person that will grant you access to the artifact, or if you sack the settlement, that will also grant you access to the artifact. You do not have to occupy and claim the territory for yourself necessarily. You can simply attack it, or if you become allies with somebody and they take control of it, that will grant you the benefit as well. So you don't necessarily have to conquer everything, or if you're having a hard time confederating an ally, keep in mind that those are options you have. Now, with those things being covered, I believe that's everything I wanted to discuss for this video. It was a tricky campaign for me to figure out how to get things on the right track, or at least it took a couple extra tries. But if you can take these first 3 provinces and hold out until you get your economy built up and get some higher tier troops on board, you'll be able to move through the rest of the campaign without too much trouble. In the long run, it's hard to predict what happens next, and that's why I don't have too many tips past the early stages of the game. Are the dwarves doing well? Are the greenskins doing well? Are the Skaven becoming dominant? I don't necessarily want to give tips for the campaign beyond this point, because I think it's too hard to predict what it will look like. From here, it's about being patient, grinding the enemies down, and continuing to build up your economic infrastructure. We saw a little bit at the start of where this campaign has led me to and what my status is in that campaign. The greenskins are huge. Crooked Moon has confederated the Bloody Hands. They are fighting against the Skaven, but they're also fighting against me. So I'm having to fight Skarbrand, Clan Moors, and Crooked Moon all at the same time. You should pretty much expect the same. You should kind of expect somewhat overwhelming odds. So just be prepared for that. But like I said, especially with the Skaven and the Greenskins, once you grind them down over a few successive battles, you'll be able to push out and gain some more territory. While you're grinding them down, that will give you the income you need from the battles in order to make sure that your provinces are financially supported and getting them upgraded. As they get upgraded, they become very self-sufficient in terms of economic output and production. And so it's very easy to make some money, build a second army, and use that, or a third army, and use that additional army to conquer another 2 provinces and push even further into enemy territory. Trying to move north and finding dwarf allies can help. Scouting the rest of the southern jungle would probably be good too. Teclis will definitely offer you a trade agreement, especially if you're on good terms with Krok Gar. If Krok Gar and Talakwa don't fight, which they did in my campaign, but if they don't fight, that's another ally here. You have the Cult of Sigmar to the west. There's lots of people just outside of your vision range that if you kind of send a hero through and get some vision, you could make some more friends that way. That will help supplant your income and help you be able to survive and push forward even more effectively. And with a good start and the right ideas, you should be able to sort through a lot of these, mid to late game fights more effectively. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned some useful tips and techniques from it. Like I said, I personally had to take a few more attempts to find the right approach in this campaign myself, but it's worked out well enough for me by now. So sharing those things, I'm hoping will help you if you've been struggling in your own campaigns to overcome some of the obstacles you've been facing. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to like and subscribe so you can keep up with future content from me. If you have any further questions on this or other topics, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you have any tips or tricks of your own, I'd be happy for you to share them as well. With that being said, thanks for watching, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.